Chapter 41-50. Cathulhu Online, Munya. Chapter 41. Cat Dad's Awakening. Although Xiao Mao was proud of his new look, there was a problem. How would he go to school? How would he explain this to the teachers and his classmates? He couldn't go to school like this. Oh, boy. Xiao Mao closed his eyes, recalling the interviews of various top superhumans in his previous life. He vividly remembered a talk show, where a certain ONI woman revealed her secret of how she shape-shifted between her ONI form and her human form whenever she wanted to. The one on the talk show was none other than Wei Ji, the track girl that had asked Xiao Mao to join the half-marathon event. In his previous life, this ONI Valkyrie openly and freely shape-shifted between her human form and ONI form whenever and wherever she wanted. These tips might be helpful for newly awakened superhumans out there. When you transform the first time, you will either get excited or confused. But I want you to calm down, close your eyes, and meditate for a few minutes. Just sit down and relax. Take a deep breath and count 1 in your mind. Deeply exhale and count 2. Repeat and don't open your eyes until you count to 1000. When you reopen your eyes again, go back to the mirror and talk to yourself. Say that you are human. Engrave that conviction and vow so that your heart doesn't get consumed by the power. And then, the shape-shifting abilities will naturally come to you. You should be able to revert back to your human form as long as your mind is at peace. Xiao Mao bitterly smiled when he thought of Wei Ji at school. He wondered if she had joined the game yet. But soon, Wei Ji would rise to the top. He shook his head to discard the ill thoughts. He concentrated on his breathing pace, meditating and calming his heart. Whew! He took several deep breaths while standing in front of the mirror. He stopped thinking of everything even though he was late for school. In fact, he gave up going to school today. 10 minutes later. Achoo! Standing still in the humid bathroom for a long time was bad for one's health. The sneeze broke Xiao Mao's focus and forced him to come back to his sense. He reopened his eyes and cleaned his face and hands by reflex. But as Xiao Mao washed his hands, the corner of his eyes noticed that his face, hair, and appearance returned to normal. His human ears returned, and he no longer had a tail. Unfortunately, his golden pupils stayed. Yikes, Munya! Xiao Mao didn't give up. He shut his eyes and opened them, hoping to somehow change his pupil color. Unfortunately, he failed. Achoo! Again, staying wet for long was bad for health. Xiao Mao stopped worrying about his pupils and grabbed a towel to dry his body. When Xiao Mao came out of the bathroom, it was already 9 a.m. Munya! Mew! Nya! Mio! As soon as Xiao Mao came out of the bath, the mob of cats swarmed him. They had been scratching the bathroom door, trying to get in for a long time. Xiao Mao snickered and squatted down. Were you trying to get in or are you hungry, Munya? Munya! Food, peasant! Where? Mew! Human! Feed me! Nya! Papa, I'm hungry! Mio! Servant, where's my breakfast? Xiao Mao frowned. He didn't know why but he had a feeling that he understood the cats. Oh, well. Food, it is. Come to the kitchen. Munya Munya. Finally. Mew. Food. Nya, yay. Mio, I want wet food. Hey? Did somebody say wet food, Munya? Mio, me. I want an extra large serving. Mew, me, 2. Nya. Me, 3. Add some crunchy ones to my bowl, 2. Munya, I want both with a sardine on top. Xiao Mao tilted his head in confusion about how he understood their meow. He shrugged and went to the kitchen, preparing food for his cat and himself. 9:30 a.m. Xiao Mao and his cats had their fill. He cleaned the dishes and took care of his master's sand toilet. Then, he returned to his room, hoping to change his clothes. Currently, he was in his birthday suit with a towel on his shoulder. Being alone in the house had its perk, but he couldn't walk around naked forever. As soon as Xiao Mao opened the door to his bedroom, the stench of a cat's urine leaked out. His nose twitched. "Which one of you peed on my bedroom, Munya?" Xiao Mao bellowed, causing the cats to widen their eyes. They climbed the stairs to the second floor to look at Xiao Mao's face. Nianko tilted her head. She followed Xiao Mao into the bedroom while the others simply stared at him. Xiao Mao soon discovered the yellowish stain on his pillow on the bed. Fortunately, he had been spending nights in the game capsule, so he didn't use it. "Nia, Papa, do you like my smell?" Xiao Mao frowned. He turned to Nianko. "Was it you?" "Nia? Was it me?" "Yeah. Was it you? Did you pee on my bed?" "Nia, who peed? I am innocent." Xiao Mao paused for a moment. Again, he felt like he could communicate with his cats, but he didn't know how. He simply understood them even though they only meowed like usual. Is superpower enable me to communicate with cats or something? I'm not a beast tamer, though. Xiao Mao stopped chatting with Nianko. He took the pillow and bed sheet out, bringing them to a washing machine. In the end, Xiao Mao spent the entire morning doing the house chore, washing his bed sheet, Wei Ji's clothes, and his dirty pillow. At noon. The screaming song ringtone of his house phone annoyed Xiao Mao. The phone rang when he was in the middle of pouring hot water into an instant noodle cup. He put his lunch down and rushed to his phone in the bedroom. It was a new number. Of course, it was a new number. Xiao Mao never recorded anybody's number other than his parents. "Hello, Munya." "Hello. Is this Miao Xiao Mao?" "Who is this?" "It's me, Wei Ji." "Oh, right. What's up, Senior, Munya?" Xiao Mao suddenly remembered that he indeed gave his number to this future Oni Valkyrie. "I went to your class to check your conditions, but your classmates told me that you didn't come to school today. Are you all right?" "Ah. Ha ha ha. I'm okay, Munya. Actually, I skipped school because I woke up late today. Nothing to worry about. Thanks for calling, by the way, Munya. By the way, I heard that you lived near the school. Can you give me your address?" "Why? Are you coming to visit?" Xiao Mao raised his brows. He disliked visitors. "Dumbass. Have you washed my clothes? I need it tomorrow." "Oh, it's already washed," Xiao Mao was relieved. "Give me your address. I'll go pick it up." "Okay." Xiao Mao gave Wei Ji his address. They chatted for a few minutes before he hung up the call. He sighed and checked his clothes. Currently, he wore a white t-shirt and a boxer, which was inappropriate to welcome a girl. Xiao Mao sighed. Although he didn't care about her impression of him, he put on the school jersey pants and went to collect Wei Ji's clothes, which had been hanging on the second-floor balcony outside of the house. The clothes were already dried, but Xiao Mao didn't know if he had cleaned them properly. He took it closer to his nose and sniffed it. Achoo! The cloth detergent scent was too powerful. Xiao Mao sneezed and felt like his hair stood up. Xiao Mao took the clothes downstairs and put them in a plastic bag. But as he was at it, he remembered something. He forgot about his instant noodle. It was too late. Munyang, Mir, Nianko, and Mio already flipped the cup over and messed the kitchen floor. Of course, they didn't eat the hot instant noodle. The cats were still on the kitchen table, looking at their deed. When Xiao Mao came to the kitchen, Nianko and Mama Cat hissed at him while Munyang and Mir widened their eyes. You guys had eyes. Xiao Mao had a headache. He picked up a mop and cleaned the kitchen. He didn't why the cats hissed at him, but he ignored it. He was so busy today. Ding dong. Someone pressed the doorbell. Xiao Mao scratched his head, frustrated. He rushed to the door and opened it. Then, he discovered Wei Ji, who had come here on her bicycle. Wei Ji raised her brows and sized up Xiao Mao. She was silent for a while. Meow Xiao Mao. Yeah. Oh, I don't remember you for a minute. You look good in that costume. Are you into cosplay? What do you mean? Xiao Mao walked out of the house and gave Wei Ji her clothes. Wei Ji took the bag and gazed at the top of Xiao Mao's head. She then glanced at the wiggling tail behind him. Your tail looks so natural. By the way, where did you get your cat ears, wig, and that tail? Hey! Xiao Mao was frozen. His eyes shifted as he glanced at the fluffy white tail. The cat ears also wiggled because of his erratic emotions. He was in his Wurricat form. Chapter 42 Cat Dad's Furry Moment. Oh! Xiao Mao sweated profusely, trying to come up with an excuse. Should I confess? Should I convince her about the perks of the game now? Should I win her favor like a regressed protagonist in novels? Fortunately, Wei Ji misunderstood him. She laughed at Xiao Mao. Don't worry. I'll keep it a secret. Don't attend the race-in with those props tomorrow, okay? Wei Ji giggled. She patted him. Xiao Mao silently nodded, but he was somewhat disappointed. Wei Ji smiled as she found him interesting. She wanted to continue chatting with this weirdo. By the way, aren't your parents angry that you skipped school today? Ha ha ha. My parents are on vacation. I'm home alone, Munya. Ho? Home alone, I see, Wei Ji widely grinned. Xiao Mao suddenly had goosebumps. He coughed and tried to change the subject before things escalated. By chance, are you into Vermo games, Munya? I'm not into Vermo. Sorry. I see. That's too bad. I was planning to invite you to play a good game that you can make money, Munya. I want to play as well, but I'm into physical games that can make money. Again, Wei Ji suspiciously grinned. Again, Xiao Mao's cat sense was tingling. He widened his eyes while his tail and fur straightened in fright. This development was dangerous. He shouldn't pursue what kind of physical games she was into. You're not going to ask me what kind of physical games I'm interested in? Wei Ji giggled. Nope. Thank you. Well, I have something to do today, Munya. Please excuse me. I'll see you tomorrow morning, Munya. Xiao Mao sweated bullets. He rushed into his house and shut the door. Seeing how Xiao Mao panicked, Wei Ji burst into laughter. Everything was a prank, and Xiao Mao's reaction was priceless. She had fun teasing him. Had Xiao Mao invited her in, she would have said that she was into sports game competitions instead of something lewd. Other boys would have eagerly invited me in with an ulterior motive. But Miao Xiao Mao is actually cute. Wei Ji hummed and waved her hands at the closed door. Then, she rode the bicycle back to school. While Wei Ji was riding back home, her phone rang. She put on earphones and swiped the phone. Yes, Dad. I have good news for you, Jir. You're not going to believe this. Wei Ji giggled as she was in a good mood. What's up? You sound excited. Your uncle won a raffle lottery and got an ultra-rare NFT for you. NFT? What's that? Hey! You're so young, so uneducated. You need to study technologies more. Look at your papa. Your papa got a PhD in physical education by sending a few letters to an apartment university while I was banging your mother, attending high school, and working at a butcher store at the same time. While you're pursuing a golden medal, you must not forget studying. Wei Ji's mood was ruined. Oh, God! The cringe. Had eyes. That's a fake diploma, Dad. Stop flexing and stop refer it as your real degrees. If somebody finds out, you'll lose your job. Hey! You don't understand When you grow up, you have to brag and flex to get a proper social standing Naive idiots that don't flex can't get ahead in career Wei Ji had a headache. Her father looked so intimidating and terrifying on the surface. But in reality, he was a braggart. Don't sidetrack, Dad. What's NFT? Hey! Young people these days don't study about technologies What is it, then? Wei Ji's face contorted with frustration. I'll explain at home Explaining on the phone costs money. I also have a surprise for you. See you at home. Beep. Wei Huang hung up the call. Wei Ji rubbed her temples. She had the urge to scold her dad, but she held it in. Phone calls were free these days. Everybody used various apps to call their friends and families, and her dad also used a social media app as well. Yet, he claimed that phone calls cost money. Forget it. I'll search the terms on the internet. While she had a headache, her nose caught a whiff of a strange scent. Wei Ji glanced at the plastic bag, which contained her school uniform. She leaned over and sniffed it. What kind of detergent Miao Xiao Mao is using? It smells funny. She parked her bicycle and checked her clothes. He brought them out to inspect it. It was clean, soft, and warm. Although Wei Ji was not familiar with Xiao Mao's detergent, she could tell that Xiao Mao had used a softener. How nice of him! I thought men rarely used softener on their clothes. The pants and jacket were fine. But there was something extra among the clothes. It was a pillow sheet. Hey! Did Miao Xiao Mao mess up? Ha ha ha, he must have been nervous and mixed this with my clothes by mistake. Wei Ji slowly put the clothes back in the plastic bag. But as she put the pillow sheet back, the funny odor hit her nose again. She paused and glanced at the pillow. Then, she brought it closer to her face and sniffed it. Indeed, the sour odor came from this pillow sheet. A faint yellowish stain was barely visible on the white pillow sheet. Is this Miao Xiao Mao's body scent? Wei Ji frowned for a moment. Yet, she continued to sniff it as if she tried to remember his scent. Little did she know. After Wei Ji had left, Xiao Mao returned to the second floor's balcony to check on his pillow in a dry washing machine. The machine was still working as intended, but Xiao Mao suddenly remembered something. Xiao Mao was absent-minded when he did his chore. He accidentally washed the bed sheet, pillow sheet, and Wei Ji's clothes together. Fortunately, he realized his mistake and thoroughly washed them again. He also used a softener to clear the funny smell. However, Xiao Mao didn't remember where he had put the pillow sheet after he dried it. Where did I put the pea-stained sheet again? I only see my bed sheet. What the hell? Xiao Mao scratched his head and played with his cat ears. Rubbing the back of the ears was addictive. Since he couldn't find it, he shrugged and stopped worrying about it. After all, lost items in the house were usually found when one least expected them. Xiao Mao returned to the kitchen to prepare lunch for his cats. But as soon as Xiao Mao returned to the kitchen again, Mama Cat and Nianko hissed at him. As for Mir, she rushed to his legs and sniffed him. Munyang simply yawned and lazed around as usual. Xiao Mao laughed at them. What? You don't recognize your slave, Munya? Munya. I remember you, peasant. Mew? Why do you smell like Munyang? Thanks for the feedback. What about you too, Munya? Xiao Mao snickered and started pouring dried cat food into their bowls. As soon as Nianko and Mama Cat noticed that Xiao Mao was preparing their food, they stopped hissing and came closer to him. They warily sniffed his legs and tail. Sensing that the cats came to check on him, Xiao Mao instinctively wagged his tail. It was a mistake. The two innocent cats widened their eyes and fixated on the moving fluffy tail. Their hunting instinct was ignited, and they thought that Xiao Mao was playing with them. Mama Cat jumped up and caught the tail with her claws. Nianko suddenly got braver and climbed Xiao Mao's pants. Then, she hugged the tail and bit it. Oi, ladies! My tail is not a snack. It was too late. Mama Cat and Nianko teamed up on his tail by hugging, biting, and kicking it non-stop. Still, it didn't hurt him. Aside from the tickling feeling, the cat's fangs and claws couldn't penetrate his skin. Xiao Mao dragged the two naughty cats around by letting them hold on to his tail. He walked around the kitchen and placed their lunch bowls on the floor. Munyang and Mir rushed to their bowl. Nianko and Mama Cat reacted a bit slower, but they eventually let go of Xiao Mao and fought for their food. As the four cats were busy, Xiao Mao finally had a chance to return to the game. Xiao Mao got back to his room. But this time, lying down on his back was uncomfortable because of his tail. He closed his eyes and meditated, trying to revert back to his human form. He also put on the Vermo helmet and closed the hatch, just in case he accidentally fall asleep. 1 minute later, Xiao Mao indeed fell asleep and entered the game. Whoosh! Ding! Error! Detecting foreign DNA in host. Chapter 43 Cat Dad's Dungeon Shopping. I was planning to transform before I enter the game. I fall asleep again, didn't I? Xiao Mao returned to the top of the suspension bridge's tower. He looked up and saw a shop stall not far away from here. The dungeon shop was finally open for businesses. Xiao Mao stopped worrying about real-world issues. He checked his status attributes, wondering what the game console and the recent updates had done to his game character. But nothing had changed. Almost all his stats were the same, except for one peculiar skill. Instinct, Bloodline Passive, Mastery Max. Default monster drop rate is fixed to 100% when you participate in the kill. Upon killing a red-named player or a player from hostile factions, eject the dead player's equipment, items, and gold coins in their inventory. Decrease their level by 1 and increase yours by 1. Display hidden quest and item information in the description. Munya 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 Munya. Unfortunately, the bloodline skill's name was still a mystery, but 3 perks of the mysterious bloodline skill were revealed. As Xiao Mao had guessed, the bloodline skill was behind the drop rate glitch, quest hints, and item description hints. However, there was one thing that astonished Xiao Mao. It also worked on red-named players. If I kill a criminal player, will they drop everything they possess? The perk clearly stated that the dead red-name player would eject all items in their inventory. By this logic, the drop rate of red-named players would also be 100%. This bug skill was game-breaking. Victims of Xiao Mao in the future would surely complain to the game company. For the sake of the greater good and the company's best interest, Xiao Mao came up with new inspiration. I must join PvP events and hunt every red-named player in the future. He. Though excited, Xiao Mao grinned and put the matter of piking and stealing other players' items aside. He approached the NPC shop. The NPC was a shady guy in a black hooded robe. He wore a white wooden mask and gloves, hiding his true appearance. On the stall was a gypsy orb. Aside from the orb and the orb's holder, only a piece of sheet covered his stall. Xiao Mao hopped on the stall. Hello. Can I see you wear, Munya? The shopkeeper looked at Xiao Mao, and the orb on the table shone in golden light. Ding! A shop menu appeared. However, it only showed item icons, their names, and prices. Xiao Mao couldn't see the item's details. Advanced Teleportation Scroll, 1 packed. Knoll Dungeon Teleportation Rune, 10 packed. A Vial of Vampire Blood, 10 packed. Smelly Salted Sardine, 10 packed. Warg Slaying Enchantment Stone, 100 packed. Knoll Slaying Enchantment Stone, 100 packed. Warlord's Lost Keycard, 1000 packed, only one in stock. Strange Jade Plate, Mermaid Model, exchange only one in stock. Spatial Bank Service, 1 day, 1000 packed. Weapon Rental Service, 1 hour, 1000 packed. Armor Rental Service, 1 hour, 1000 packed. Everything was expensive as expected. This was the game's mechanism to burn their tokens. Although the game mechanic was good, not many players were aware of the usefulness of these items yet. Meanwhile, everybody focused on making money by obtaining free pact in the game, and the token price kept dropping. Soon, those players would regret their decision of selling their tokens. Xiao Mao checked the items one by one. None of them showed a description, but he knew what they could do. Teleportation scrolls were common items that could be purchased in major cities. It normally cost 10,000 gold coins. But here, the advanced version of TP scrolls spiked up to 1 million gold coins or 1 pact. The advanced teleportation scroll was indeed worth the money. The teleportation effect could not be cancelled or interrupted like the cheaper version, and it could teleport everybody in the caster's party. Many guilds would stock this item later on for guild wars and skirmish battles. Knoll Dungeon Teleportation Rune was another useful item for dungeon visitors. Players could use it to mark this safe zone as a teleport destination. When combined with teleportation scrolls, it saved a lot of time for traveling between city and dungeon. Vampire blood was a weapon enhancement ingredient. By coating the blood on a weapon, that weapon would have unique property, giving 50% bonus attack damage against werewolves, gnolls, and kobolds. 1 vial of blood lasted only 10 minutes. The sardine was the favorite food of Gnoll General. Normally, the general wouldn't move from the spot until a player got into his range. But with a smelly salted sardine, one could simply bait him from that spot. Warg Slaying Enchantment Stone and Gnoll Slaying Enchantment Stone were self-explanatory. By giving one of these stones to an enchanter NPC in a city, they could bestow a useful attribute to a weapon. Warg Stone was for the boss behind the massive gate. As for the Gnoll Stone, it was for the common monster. However, they gave 100% bonus damage, and the effect was permanent, which was more useful than the vial of vampire blood. But those items were not Xiao Mao's goal. He smiled at the shady NPC and brought out the unidentified bronze model, which he had gotten from the Mama Warden. He put it on the table. I see that you have found my lost mermaid model. I'll give you this jade plate for the trouble. The NPC took the model and gave Xiao Mao a luxurious-looking jade plate. At the same time, the strange jade plate disappeared from the shop. This unique item could not be found elsewhere but here, but it was not the only reason why Xiao Mao wanted it. I'll buy the keycard as well, Munya. Cha-ching. Xiao Mao paid 1,000 packs and got a sci-fi-like keycard. Again, the item in the shop disappeared. When Xiao Mao put the 2 items in his inventory, his gold name got even brighter. Now, he had 2 key items and 1 ultra-rare evolution ingredient on him. Ding! Yay! Xiao Mao wryly smiled. He was aware of the danger of holding too many unique items in his inventory, but he needed them to access the hidden dungeon. Warlord's Lost Keycard. This keycard belongs to Warlord, the chieftain of the Gnolls. He lost it during his stroll, and he has been looking for it for years. Item type, key item. Note, you cannot keep this item in your premium backpack, warehouse, or store inventory. This item is guaranteed to drop from your body if you died. Instinct, you have 2 choices. First, hand the keycard over to the Warlord and befriend him. Or second, find out where you can use this keycard, and you might find something nice. Strange Jade Plate. This ancient jade plate contains profound energy. As for what it is for or what its usage is, only immortal cultivators might know. Item type, key item. Note, you cannot keep this item in your premium backpack, warehouse, or store inventory. This item is guaranteed to drop from your body if you died. Instinct, you might want to treat this plate as a jigsaw piece. Try putting it in a suspicious gate or something to find out. Maybe it can open a path to a secret place. Instinct, this item has a hidden effect. No trap in Chang'e Sanctuary will harm the item bearer. Alright. The key to the Mermaid Sanctuary is secured. Xiao Mao purchased the Knoll Dungeon teleportation rune and used it right away. Ding! Yes, Munya. The rune vanished, and a new menu was unlocked. It was the list of saved locations that Xiao Mao could teleport there. Currently, there was only one name on the list. Unfortunately, the rune could not be used elsewhere. It was only effective in this safe zone, so Xiao Mao didn't need to buy another one. But Xiao Mao hadn't finished with the shopkeeper yet. He swallowed his saliva and pressed the weapon rental service and spatial bank service buttons. He bought them both. The NPC's eyes glittered. He clapped his hands, and 100 weapon racks emerged from the tower rooftop behind him. Xiao Mao salivated as he stared at the weapon racks. All items glowed and revealed their rainbow names. The rarity of these weapons was not simply the gold super rare or red ultra rare. These rainbow-named weapons were all legendary items. Pick any weapon from the racks. Remember that you can only borrow one for 1 hour, and it will automatically return to me. Chapter 44 Cat Dad's Knoll Fishing Technique. Xiao Mao glanced at the musket and rifle section and scoffed at them. Newbie traps. Although the rifles and muskets seemed useful and powerful, they were traps for dumb rich players. In Xiao Mao's previous life, many players tried borrowing the rifles and muskets as they thought that they were more effective than cold weaponry. However, they discovered a major flaw of hot weapons. They came with no ammunition. What was the use of the guns without ammunition? Bonking monsters with the rifles heal. Of course, the NPC wouldn't sell ammo to the players. They had to prepare the ammunition themselves. Thus, only the players that had done their homework could only use such weapons. Xiao Mao sighed. He also wanted to use the guns, but gunpowder in-game was extremely expensive. For example, one set of musket gunpowder cost 20,000 gold coins and one staple shell cost 5,000 gold coins. In short, the musketeer would always lose 25,000 gold coins per attack. For now, Xiao Mao was not rich enough for such expenditure, but he had something in mind. The cat walked toward the crossbow rack. He scanned the fancy-looking crossbows, searching for something that he could use. Several of them were so large that Xiao Mao wouldn't call them crossbows. These ballistae were designed for 3-meter-tall giant race because the regular-sized crossbows were too small for them. Fortunately, the racks featured many hand-sized and arm-sized crossbows that Xiao Mao could handle. He picked the one that fit with his tentacle arms. Rough Hephaestus Crossbow, Legendary. This crossbow was roughly made by Hephaestus to arm his father's army. Because of the urgency, Hephaestus only focused on the quantity and ignored the quality of every crossbow. After the war, this crossbow falls into the hands of a battlefield looter before it was handed over to several merchants. And now, it is in your hands. Because it was made for immortals, the weapon requires a lot of mana consumption upon use. No beginner or mortal with weak mental fortitude should play around with it if they don't want to die. Item Type: Rental Magic Weapon. Effect: Attack plus 1000, AoE Fire Damage, Convert Physical Attack into Magic Attack, Ignore Magic Defense. Requirement: STR 50, Dex 50, Int 50, WIS 50. Durability: 2475/10000. Asterisk. Instinct: this weapon consumes either 100 MP or 100 HP per use. The weapon is automatically returned to the Apostle of Chang'e after 1 hour. As Xiao Mao had expected, the weapon was brokenly overpowered. Even if it was a legendary weapon, the stats were too high. But it came with a catch: every bullet fired from the crossbow would consume either 100 MP or 100 HP of the user. Xiao Mao checked other legendary crossbows. However, all of the required level 40 or high dex stats. I can't use anything else but this one. I'll take this. Xiao Mao picked the Hephaestus mini crossbow. Ding! The rainbow-named mini crossbow fitted in Xiao Mao's tentacle. Even when he was using the arm with the claw gauntlet to hold it, the crossbow and the gauntlet didn't get in the way. Xiao Mao checked his combat status again to see how the game calculated his stats. Combat status: ATK 0 plus 15. Def 30 plus 15. M.ATK 1470 plus 15. M.Def 30 plus 15. HP 900/900. MP 900/900. 1485 magic attack power. Moreover, it ignored magic defense. Xiao Mao laughed. He didn't know how the gauntlet's attack power was added to the calculation, but he didn't mind it. This is why the game is perfectly balanced, Munya. Xiao Mao went back to the NPC and opened the spatial bank menu. The bank was another inventory warehouse. It could store infinite items, and players could transfer items from the bank to their premium warehouse or the public marketplace. Also, Xiao Mao could manage his public marketplace with this menu without going back to the city. However, players were responsible for their spatial bank accounts. If they forgot their items in there after it expired, they would lose their items in the bank forever. Xiao Mao checked his market account through bank access. Surprisingly, he now had 161 packs. Several items were still on sale, but most high-end equipment was already sold out, especially the chest part and the helmet part. Since Xiao Mao had enough funds in his marketplace, Xiao Mao added purchase requests. He listed blue-named fishes in his purchase quote so that players could sell fishes directly to him. Then, he put the spatial bank as his default warehouse storage for the day. After everything was set, Xiao Mao purchased a smelly salted sardine. He then closed the bank and shop menu. While walking toward the edge of the bridge, Xiao Mao loaded a bolt onto the new crossbow. He fired 9 times at the west main suspension cable. Then, he looked up, grinning from ear to ear. Xiao Mao drank potions and recovered his MP back from 0 to 900. Then, he approached the east suspension cable and fired the bolt 9 times. Again, Xiao Mao looked up and widely grinned. The preparation was ready. Now, it was the time to bait the boss. He rested and drank more potions, waiting for his MP to recover to the max. As soon as Xiao Mao's MP returned to 900, he tossed the smelly salted sardine toward the bridge. A Knoll shaman caught it and glared at him. Grr! As soon as the smelly salted sardine appeared, the Knoll general stood up and shoved his retainers aside. He walked straight toward the shaman while the crowd of Knolls made a path for him. While the Knoll general was heading to retrieve his favorite snack, a rainbow bolt whizzed through the air and pierced a nearby Knoll soldier's iron helmet. Boom! 5,600! The Knoll's head exploded, scattering its brain, flesh, skull, and blood everywhere. The explosion also harmed the other Knoll soldiers nearby. 2,958. 3,050. 2,975. Every Knoll soldier within a radius of 3 meters suffered the collateral damage and was instantly burnt to ashes. Moreover, the explosion generated an incendiary shockwave, igniting everything in the radius of 10 meters on fire. A dozen Knolls, including the Knoll general, were caught on flame. The soldiers yelped in panic while the general only patted the fire off his skin. Still, countless numbers appeared on top of their heads. 131. 179. 172. 157. Every second, their HP bars decreased by a significant amount. Regular monsters like the Gnoll soldiers lost 5% of their HP every second, while Gnoll shamans only lost 1% HP per tick. As for the general, no sign of damage occurred to its HP bar. I missed, Munya. Xiao Mao was responsible for the attack just now. He had aimed at the Gnoll general, but the wind from below the bridge changed the bolt's trajectory, causing it to hit the nearby target. Xiao Mao clicked his tongue as he put on a new bolt to the crossbow and tried again. Whizzed! The aim was off again. This time, it hit the elite Gnoll shaman, who was holding the sardine for the general. The rainbow bolt punctured through the face of the Gnoll shaman. 5995. Again, the 1485 magic attack power was no joke. The shaman's HP dropped by half, and his robes were now on fire because of the flame shockwave. Because of the two shockwaves just now, the sardine was burnt into charcoal. The Gnoll general stared at the black sardine with bloodshot eyes. He looked up and found Xiao Mao, who had been sniping his men. Damn cat! Get down here! Surprisingly, it could talk. Xiao Mao smirked. He turned around and showed his butt. Pooh! The catopus farted and rained black ink on the gnolls. Then, he turned around and stuck out his tongue. Catch me if you can, Munya! Bastard! The Gnoll general was enraged. He rushed toward the bridge's cables and began climbing it. Xiao Mao grinned. Then, he glanced at the damaged suspension bridge cables. Hook, line, and sinker. Chapter 45 Cat Dad, this is Munya. Xiao Mao wasn't worried about the Gnoll general, who had been climbing the cable. The monster wore heavy armor. At a glance, Xiao Mao estimated that the Gnoll might weigh about a couple thousand pounds. With that kind of weight, it would have been a miracle if the Gnoll managed to reach the top of the tower. However, the general steadily made his way up. He had already climbed 5 meters high, and his speed didn't slow down at all. Xiao Mao scoffed at the Gnoll general's threat. He turned around and deposited all items that he had automatically obtained from the dead Gnolls into the spatial bank warehouse. Unfortunately, none of the Gnoll shamans was killed. Xiao Mao hadn't gotten any spellbook yet, but he was confident that he would get one soon. Then, he checked his health bar. HP, 700/900. MP, 200/900. Satiety, 30%. Xiao Mao deeply exhaled as the legendary crossbow drained his HP and MP. His satiety bar also rapidly decreased because of the two cursed gauntlets. At this rate, after 15 more attacks, Xiao Mao's satiety bar would be depleted, and the fish gourmet skill would be reset. He took his time, drinking potions and recovering his lost HP and MP. Then, Xiao Mao walked back toward the main cable, where the boss monster was climbing. He aimed at the damaged cable and fired a bolt. The bolt pierced the cable 10 meters away from Xiao Mao. It exploded, but the cable did not catch flame. Xiao Mao lost 100 MP and his satiety bar decreased by 2%. He looked up, checking the long red HP bars again. Earlier, Xiao Mao attacked this cable and decreased its HP by 63%. But now, the main suspension cable's HP bar indicated that only 30% of its HP remained. What would happen if the suspension cable's HP reached 0? Nya ha ha ha. Xiao Mao mocked the Gnoll general as he had this fight in his palm, paw, or tentacle. Normally, environment objects in-game, such as bridges or caves, could not be damaged by ordinary weapons or skills. However, the game left some leeway for players to exploit. Most environments and buildings in-game were destructible if the player used the right method. A siege engine or a legendary weapon with ignoring defense properties, such as the rental weapons from the dungeon store, could handle every structure with ease. And in this case, the bridge was one of the destructible objects in-game. This information was discovered during the Heavenly Dao era when alien cultivators and cultivator class players reigned supreme. At that time, many flying cultivators raided towns and demolished buildings and defensive structures of player guilds, but they couldn't destroy NPC buildings and NPC cities. However, one day, a cultivator-class player was fed up with an NPC fortress in a dungeon, which he couldn't put a dent in it. He decided to rent a legendary weapon and used it to slaughter every player and NPC for a laugh. During the slaughtering fest, he accidentally destroyed the fortress walls and the entire fortress in the process. Ever since that incident, players discovered the hidden feature of this game. They began investing in rental weapons, legendary weaponry, and siege engines. Every guild got more creative as they destroyed a few bridges, buildings, and other structures of NPCs during fights. Some of them got even more creative. They attempted to kill the dungeon shopkeepers. Unfortunately for them, the game protected the majority of NPCs in town and dungeon shopkeepers with a defensive mechanism. Any assailant would be struck by tribulation lightning and die on the spot. Unless an event involved the NPCs, such as a war or monster siege event, nobody could harm them. This dungeon's bridge was one of many destructible structures. An agent once infiltrated this dungeon and destroyed the bridge, killing all occupants and the gnolls. The destruction frenzy of players forced the game company to launch a hotfix patch later on, but that was a story of another time. Today, Xiao Mao mimicked an incident from the past. He had damaged the main suspension cables before he started the fight. Xiao Mao kept shooting at the cable on the same spot while waiting for the gnoll general to get closer. After 5 more shots, the cable's HP reached 0. And the entire cable chain snapped. Meanwhile, the gnoll general was a dozen meters away from the severed cable. As soon as the cable snapped, he screamed in shock. The cables and the boss monster fell from the sky. The metallic wires scattered and disappeared along with Gnoll General to the abyss. Nuuu. Just like that, the guardian of this floor was a goner. Xiao Mao sneered and walked back to the dungeon shop. Then, he waited for the game's confirmation messages. He didn't need to wait long. Ding! Title: This is Munya. This title is given to any brave catapus, who defeated a stronger foe by dropping the monster off a cliff. By having this title, every NPC will see you as a charismatic valiant cat. Effect: NPCs who love battles and wars respect you. Their favorability and intimacy with you will never be lower than 2 stars. A strange title was always nice regardless of how weird it was, but that was not what Xiao Mao had been waiting for. The mana fruit and health fruit were other red-named items that could drop from the Gnoll General. Each fruit permanently increased a player's HP or MP by 10. Just like the crystallized chi, Xiao Mao could eat it to increase his permanent stats. But the item drops so far were just an appetizer. Another equipment set showed up. It was a level 50 heavy armor set that Xiao Mao couldn't use. However, Slave 1 might be able to wear it when he needed to become a tank for Xiao Mao again. However, the equipment items were not the main course of the boss rewards. Xiao Mao drooled as he watched the long list of spell books appearing in his inventory one after another. His pupils turned into dollar symbol as he calculated how much money he would get from auctioning these super rare skill books. At a glance, most of these skills were active ones. Some required a blade to trigger while some required a spear. Several skills were applicable to a bow, crossbow, musket, or gun. The list went on. Xiao Mao stopped counting when 50 lines of system messages were all super rare skill books. Instead of worrying about how he would sell these books, Xiao Mao was concerned about his available inventory slots instead. Without hesitation, Xiao Mao stopped looking at the system notification messages or his inventory slots. He opened the spatial bank menu and moved as many skill books to his premium warehouse. The spam went on for 2 minutes. Xiao Mao ended up filling 200 types of super rare skill books in the premium warehouse. 600 super rare skill books. Xiao Mao was rich. He had the urge to put one of the useless skills on an NFT auction platform right away. However, the last item from the boss monster distracted him. Munya. Xiao Mao had never heard of this ultra-rare ultimate manual before. In his previous life, nobody put an ultra-rare skill book or spell book for sale. No one revealed where they got their ultra-rare abilities. Everything about ultra-rare skills or spell books was a mystery. And now, Xiao Mao suddenly got 3 of them. The cat stared at the last message in a daze. He slowly pressed the glittering bamboo scroll icon, checking the item detail. Ultra-rare mysterious ultimate manual. Upon using this book, your character may learn a random ultimate skill that fits your class and race. One character may only learn up to 3 ultimate skills or spells. Ultimate move, Munya. Chapter 46 Cat Dad's character is broken? Pangu Universe Incorporate Tower was a dark pyramid-like skyscraper, standing tall in the middle of B City Metropolitan. Because of its painting and ominous architecture, everybody nicknamed it Villain Lair. On the 10th floor of this building was a large office, where 100 game moderators coordinated with the customer contact center, dealing with troubleshooting, assisting glitched players, and collecting bug reports in-game. Some of them were in charge of monitoring the log files and scanning for suspicious activities of the players. These moderators were proud of their game's security system as no hackers or cheaters managed to damage the game. Although many aspiring hackers and cheaters had attempted to abuse the game's glitches and came up with cheat apps, these sites with the apps mysteriously disappeared along with the owners, and their apps never made it to the market. Despite not knowing how these exploiters disappeared, these employees never doubted their company as it was none of their business. After all, these moderators' daily job was more disturbing than game security issues. The VR technologies had come far. Because of its realism, many wild men used this feature to sexually harass women and men in woman avatars. Sexual activities were a feature in-game, but one could not simply walk around naked in town. These moderators acted like real-life police, arresting and banning indecent players to the point that they grew numb to it. Today as well, they had been monitoring log files and banning sexual abusers as usual. Half of the employees lazed around, staring at their monitors with a bored expression. Some of them had been nipping their donuts while many of them walked around, sipping coffee and glancing at their table. While everybody took it easy on the job, someone noticed a strange log. What the hell? The employee frowned as the corner of his eyes noticed the series of spamming game messages of a player. He opened the log file and rechecked the game messages of a certain player. Then, he turned around to ask his colleagues. Say, what is the drop rate of super rare skill books again? His friend muttered without looking at his friend, if it's dungeon bosses or roaming guardians, 0.05% per book. Is it possible for a boss to drop more than one skill book? Of course. Every boss has a drop table for specific skill books. For example, a level 50 boss carries about 200 different skill books with him, and every book has a certain fixed drop rate. So, when the boss dies, you roll the dice 200 times. If the randomized number is the same as the programmed number, the boss drops that skill book. If no jackpot occurs, the boss will drop one random skill book from the loot table. Then, what are the chances that a player can get 600 skill books from a boss? Pfft! Impossible. He must have been a hacker if that's the case. Then, what is this? Hey! The friend frowned. He turned around and checked the monitor of the employee. After reading the spam log, he was speechless. Isolate this mofo in jail and bring the player's activity log to the manager. We'll ban him and file a report to the police. On it. The two employees started working seriously. They began accessing the player's data, real-world information, and NFT character to make a report. But as soon as they tried to check the player's sensitive information, a large red warning panel appeared on their screen. The person's ID and the player's information could not be accessed. The two employees looked at each other in dismay. One of them opened their guidebook, checking for the glossary and error code list. Unfortunately, there was no such thing as code Munya. What the hell is Munya? No idea. Then, how do we report this person to the manager? I don't know. Let's call the manager. You make the call. I'll send the ban hammer. Okay. One of the employees brought out his phone and called the manager. As for the second guy, he opened his administrator tool and searched for the player with his ID number. But as he pressed the ban button, he received a warning message. What now? The frustration and confusion were unreal. The employee was about to lose his mind. But as he was about to browse the game code to search for the bug, his friend passed his phone to him. The manager wants to talk to you. The employee looked at his friend. He received the phone. This is Wang Meng. Ah, Wang Meng. I heard you guys run into a bug character. Yes, and we're having trouble banning him. The tool said code Munya or something, but we haven't seen this type of error before. Also, I can't ban the player. Oh, that. I've been looking at the log file as well. But you see, some of the bugged players are not actually hackers. What do you mean, sir? Recently, we have distributed custom-made game capsules to our board directors, executives, and management-level employees. You know, their newly created characters get a few unique perks, and some advantages. In short, the manager tried to tell his employees that the top brass people were playing the game with their cheat characters, and they had no authority to mess with their activities. But sir, we're talking about level 50 super rare skill books. They're not supposed to be a common commodity. A freaking player just got 600 books from the boss just now. I know it's excessive. I'll handle this case. Remember my words, this incident never happens, alright? Also, I've already contacted the programming department. They will launch a hotfix patch soon. If you say so, sir. While the company was in chaos, Miao Daimao and Katarina had been chilling, standing in front of the conference hall and observing the news reporters, who bombarded Pan Mei and Pan Xian with nasty questions. The parents of Xiao Mao were dressed in black suits. Their matching sunglasses blended them among the crowd of bodyguards, who had been watching over Pan Xian and Pan Mei in the conference hall. While Miao Daimao was bored, his cell phone vibrated. He peeked at his phone to check the message. As soon as he saw the text, his expression was ashen. He glanced at his wife, but she frowned at him as if she understood what he was thinking. I'll cover your post. Make it quick. Sorry, wifey. Miao Daimao turned around and disappeared into the crowd. Nobody noticed a shadow silhouette, who suddenly jumped out of an alley and leaped across several buildings in the night sky. Beep. A few seconds after Miao Daimao had left, Katarina's phone also vibrated. She scanned the crowd one more time to prevent mishaps before she peeked at her phone. It was a message from the developer department of the Pangu Universe Incorporate. Caught. Your son's game character is too broken. You added too many perks for him. Katarina pursed her lips, having the urge to laugh out loud. She texted back. What perk? Didn't you add a skill that increases the drop rate to 100%? I didn't do anything to the capsule. It's Daimao's responsibility. Also, I don't see anything wrong with it. We have a lot of broken skills and spells in the game. But your son exploited it and got 600 skill books from a dungeon boss. The mod department almost banned him just now. Every executive's kid gets to have fun, vice director. 600 super rare skill books, Katarina. If he learns everything, what kind of disaster he will bring us when we launch the Heavenly Dao patch. It's the programming department's fault for putting so many skill books in the same monster's loot table. Tell them to fix that instead. How about limiting it to 3 to 5 books per monster? I'm going to do just that. Also, I'm going to confiscate some of your son's items. Is that all right? Make sure to compensate him properly. He played the game by using the game skills and characters perks. You can't punish him because he utilized one of the game's features. All right. The development department's director stopped sending text messages. Katerina smirked and put her phone back in her suit's inner pocket and resumed her bodyguard work. Whoosh! A few minutes after Katerina finished chatting with her colleague, a shadow silhouette descended from a building into an alley. A man in a black suit and sunglasses strolled out of the dark path and returned to his post. Katerina twitched her nose and whispered, "You reek blood." Miao De Mao brought out a hand sanitizing spray bottle and pressed it. He rubbed his hands with alcohol until hands were dried. Then, he put on a pair of white gloves. He muttered as he secretly sniffed his suit. Too many hackers to kill, too little time to prepare. How many do we get in from this job? 10 spirit stones and 100 grand. Too little. There's only one remnant cultivator from the first game among the hit list today. You can't expect them to be that rich. Spirit stones are scarce these days. Katerina shook her head and sighed in disappointment. Then, she fetched her phone and tossed it to De Mao. What? Miao De Mao caught the phone with one hand and without looking at it. Check out my chat with the developer's director. Xiao Mao is in trouble. Miao De Mao snickered. Without looking at the chat, he tossed the phone back. Katerina frowned and caught it with her fingers. I already expected that. So, you were behind this. It's the custom-made capsule. Every executive director has one or two for their kids. Even our family's custom-made capsules are scheduled for the next year. But coincidentally, Xiao Mao invested in Pact and began acting like an adult. Since he was doing well, I bought the capsule from a board director and gave it to him ahead of the schedule. So, it was you all along. That's right. It was me, De Mao. Miao De Mao grinned and mimicked an anime meme. Does the capsule increase the drop rate to 100%? Hey! Miao De Mao froze. He turned to Katerina, what 100%? 100% drop rate. What drop rate? Doesn't your capsule increase the monster drop rate for Xiao Mao's game character? Katerina turned to Miao De Mao. Her face didn't hide her confusion and doubt. That capsule only improves the game integration and synchronization rate so that he can become Superman like us faster. It won't affect the game and his character's skills. Hey! Now, Katerina frowned. She swiped her phone and reread the texts. If Miao De Mao had nothing to do with the issue, then how did Xiao Mao get the 100% drop rate skill? Miao Xiao Mao's bedroom. The 4 cats of Xiao Mao all sat on the capsule hatch, staring at their owner. Munya faintly smiled while the other cats scratched the hatch's thick glass, trying to wake Xiao Mao up to play with them. Munya. Chapter 47 Cat Dad is burning books. Ultimate skill. This was something of a myth as only a few players in Xiao Mao's previous life could have. Several players once recorded the ultimate moves of many top players. However, they only caught a glimpse of the skills, and they never saw how the superhuman used them in-game or in real life. But now, Xiao Mao had the chance to learn it and experience it firsthand. Alright. I'll learn it right away. Without hesitation, Xiao Mao pulled a manual from his inventory. It shone in rainbow light as if several unicorns had flown out of the bamboo scroll. Yes, Munya. The manual opened by itself and illuminated the entire dungeon. An illusion of a catopus with a microphone appeared in front of Xiao Mao. Suddenly, the illusion menacingly stared at Xiao Mao. It opened its mouth and sang. Xiao Mao frowned as the illusion caught him off guard. Why did this hologram sing for him? The answer was soon revealed. Ding! Congratulations! You have learned the ultimate move, Providence Song. The skill detail appeared in the system panel. Providence Song, Mastery 0%. Catopusses are natural singers. They have a cute and charming voice that can melt every listener's heart, and their purring can even cure cancer. However, if their voice is utilized in combat, their cute voice can crush their enemy's willpower. By unleashing your true cuteness, your enemies will be stunned by your charm and lose the will to fight for a brief moment. Skill type, active, ultimate. Rarity, ultra rare, unique. Cost, 2000 MP. Cooldown, 24 hours. Effects. Inflict an abnormal status charm to all targets within 10 meters. The effect lasts 1 minute. Charmed targets are susceptible to enslavement skill. Charmed targets cannot attack the caster. Xiao Mao's expression distorted in disappointment. Are you serious, Munya? He had expected an offensive skill or a destructive skill. However, his character's ultimate power was a debuff type. From Xiao Mao's standard, it looked lackluster. But as Xiao Mao reread it again, he discovered that the ultimate move synergized with his unique skill Enslavement. Enslavement, Mastery 0%. Brand a slave seal to any regular monster or NPC that is critically injured, and they will be forced to follow your every instruction. Skill type, active, class unique. Rarity, super rare. Cost, 100 MP. Cooldown, 24 hours. Effects. Permanently turn a monster or an NPC into your slave. The success rate depends on their traits and relationship with the caster. If this skill is used on a charmed target, the success rate doubles. An enslaved NPC takes 1 retainer's slot. An enslaved monster takes 3 retainer's slots. Currently, the enslavement skill was useless as Xiao Mao only had 1 room for his retainers and slaves. He needed to increase his contribution level to make a room for a new slave or he wouldn't be able to use the skill. But that didn't stop Xiao Mao from abusing the game. He scanned through the list of the skill books in his premium warehouse and pulled out 10 red-named books. Berserker Rage X3. Self-Detonation X2. Aphrodisiac Magic X2. Dual Cultivator Art, Night Vitality X3. Xiao Mao and his future slaves didn't need these super rare skills. The Berserker Rage sacrificed one's defense and HP to increase close-ranged physical attack power, which seemed useful for DPS class players. However, the brawling meta would fall off in the next few patches. Soon, the closed-ranged DPS class would be inferior to long-ranged classes and technician jobs in guild wars and events, and the meta would remain for years until the merge. Self-detonation was useless for most classes. Only players with a puppeteer class, such as necromancers, tamers, and summoners, might find this skill useful as they often used their disposable summons or underlings as suicide bombers. However, Xiao Mao never wanted to sacrifice Slave 1 or his future underlings, so he didn't need it. Dual Cultivator Art, Night Vitality was a perverted skill. It enabled the caster to have infinite libido and stamina. Of course, Xiao Mao didn't play the game for sex, so he didn't want it. This super rare skill was popular among elderly players, though. The last disposable skill was the Aphrodisiac Magic. As its name implied, it inflicted an abnormal status estrus to targets, and they would do kinky stuff to the caster. Again, Xiao Mao didn't play the game for sex, so he didn't need it. Xiao Mao gazed at the 10 skill books. He brought them out, but he didn't learn any of them. Instead, he navigated his skill menu and pressed the plus icon next to the name of protein from fish skill name. The menu changed. It showed 10 empty slots at the bottom while the icon of protein from fish skill was on top. At the right of the skills icon, the menu displayed the mastery percentage. This was the skill enhancement menu. Anyone could enhance their skill mastery by sacrificing skill books or spell books at any rarity to increase the mastery percentage. Xiao Mao put all 10 books into the empty slots. Then, the menu previewed the new skill mastery percentage, which changed from 17% to 22%. Too wasteful. Xiao Mao was dissatisfied. He felt like he would lose millions of dollars for increasing his skill mastery by sacrificing skill books. In fact, he only needed to spend 2 days to increase his skill mastery from 17% to 22%. He cancelled the skill enhancement for the protein from fish skill. Instead, he tried to upgrade the enslavement instead. This time, the percentage showed a different result. By putting the 10 super rare skill books in the empty slots, the preview revealed that the mastery level rose from 0 to 50%. Xiao Mao took off one book, and the mastery decreased to 45%. I see. The legendary skill consumes more enhancement ingredients, but my UR character's unique skill takes fewer super rare books to upgrade. Xiao Mao put the skill book back into the empty slot and pressed the Enhance button. The skill books vanished into the enslavement skills icon and increased its mastery to 50%. After increasing his skill mastery, Xiao Mao searched for more useless skill books to use. But after searching for a minute, he recalled that the borrowed weapon had a time limit usage, and he shouldn't be wasting time on picking skill books. I can get those books again if I kill another Knoll general. Why should I be concerned about money at this point? Xiao Mao chuckled and shoved 10 random super rare books into the empty slots again. This time, he only kept the one that he would use and sacrificed everything that he didn't need. Whoosh! The enslavement skill mastery reached the max level. Xiao Mao switched the skill. He chose the protein form fish add-on skill and sacrificed another batch of books. Without looking at the mastery level, Xiao Mao added more books and pressed the Enhance button. After enhancing the skill 16 times, the skill mastery reached 97. He laughed. He added 6 more red-named books to the slots and pressed the button again. Ding! Finally, the broken skill that Xiao Mao had purchased with real money reached the max level. But Xiao Mao didn't stop there. He began upgrading other skills. In 3 minutes, all Xiao Mao's skills reached 100% mastery. He also learned 5 useful skills. Protein from fish, mastery 100%. Fish is the best source of protein. Nothing can go wrong if you eat fish unless you're allergic to them. Skill type, passive. Rarity, legendary. Effects. Increase status attribute permanently, depending on the fish you eat. This skill cannot increase an attribute further than 200. Providence Song, mastery 100%. Catopusses are natural singers. They have a cute and charming voice that can melt every listener's heart, and their purring can even cure cancer. However, if their voice is utilized in combat, their cute voice can crush their enemy's willpower. By unleashing your true cuteness, your enemies will be stunned by your charm and lose the will to fight for a brief moment. Skill type, active, ultimate. Rarity, ultra rare. Cost, 1000 MP. Cooldown, 24 hours. Effects. Inflict an abnormal status charm to all targets within 20 meters for 1 minute. Charmed targets are susceptible to enslavement skill for 10 seconds. Charmed targets cannot attack the caster. Enslavement, mastery 100%. Brand a slave seal to any regular monster or NPC that is critically injured. They will be loyal to you and follow you wholeheartedly. Skill type, active, class unique. Rarity, super rare. Cost, 100 MP. Cooldown, 24 hours. Effects. Permanently turn a monster or an NPC into your loyal slave. The success rate varies depending on their traits and relationship with the caster. If this skill is used on a charmed target, the success rate is 100%. An enslaved NPC takes 1 retainer's slot. An enslaved monster takes 1 retainer's slots. Slave training, mastery 100%. Slave training is the basic skill of every slave master. This skill can turn any unruly slave into a disciplined soldier if you use it right. Skill type, passive, class unique. Rarity, super rare. Current effects. Upon defeating enemies while your slaves or retainers are in the same party, your slaves, monster slaves, and retainers gain double EXP. Your retainers and slaves have a low chance of learning a new skill upon defeating a strong enemy. Fish Gourmet, mastery 100%. Catopusses are natural fish gourmets. Fish are everything they need, and they will do anything for fish. Skill type, passive, racial unique. Rarity, super rare. Effects. You can consume fish even though your satiety bar is full. No limit. Restore 100 HP and 100 MP per fish. Temporarily increase ATK, M.ATK, def, and M.def by 10% for 60 minutes. Effects cannot stack. Catnap, Mastery 100%. After you take a short nap, you will gain Catnap Blessing, temporarily increasing your max HP and MP. Skill type, passive, racial unique. Rarity, super rare. Effect, increase your max HP and MP by 20% for 120 minutes. Chameleon, Mastery 100%. You are one with nature. Like a chameleon, you can blend your body's color with the environment. Unless someone pays attention to you, nobody can notice you. Skill type, active. Rarity, super rare. Cost, 300 MP. Cooldown, 60 minutes. Effects. Change your skin, hair, and fur color to blend in with the environment. The effect lasts 60 minutes. Your name, HP bar, and status will be invisible to other players and NPCs. One man 1000 arrows, Mastery 100%. Have you ever heard of a one-man army? This skill enables you to become a one-man archer battalion. You can unleash a 1,000 arrow volley by yourself and watch the world burn. Asterisk require a bow or a crossbow. Skill type, active. Rarity, super rare. Cost, 500 MP, 1000 bolts or arrows of any type. Cooldown, 60 seconds. Effects. Unleash a volley of 1000 arrows or bolts to a designated area. Consume 1000 arrows or bolts in your inventory. Deal 100% physical attack damage to enemies in the area. Inflict fear abnormal status to every enemy in the designated area. Flying sword, Mastery 100%. This skill is one of many core skills of cultivators and magic swordsmen. At a glance, this skill is for offensive purposes. However, cultivators often used this skill to manipulate their swords as a vehicle to fly. Asterisk require a sword. Skill type, active. Rarity, super rare. Cost, 100 MP, or 100 Chi. Cooldown, 1 second. Effects. Send a flying sword to your enemy or a designated location. Deal 100% physical damage and 100% Chi damage. You can ride on the flying sword and manipulate its direction. Lock on mark, Mastery 100%. This skill is popular among aspiring snipers and spotters. By pinpointing your target with a laser pointer and activating this skill, the next projectile attack or ranged attack will not miss the target. Asterisk require a laser pointer. Skill type, active. Rarity, super rare. Cost, 250 MP. Cooldown, 30 minutes. Effects. Inflict marked and locked on abnormal status to the target. The effect lasts 2 minutes. Asterisk marked target is guaranteed to suffer a critical target on the next attack. Asterisk locked on target cannot dodge the next attack. Homing snipe, Mastery 100%. Aimbots were a thing in the past, and every gamer shunned this cheating program. However, this skill can replicate the aimbots, and you won't feel bad for using it. Asterisk require a firearm, crossbow, or bow. Skill type, active. Rarity, super rare. Cost, 500 MP. Cooldown, 60 minutes. Effects. By aiming your gun, crossbow, bow, or any firearm toward the general direction of a target with locked-on abnormal status, your aiming will automatically follow the target. Inflict 120% physical attack damage to the locked-on target. Ignore physical defense. Chapter 48 Cat Dad is nerfed. Xiao Mao looked at the clock and checked the remaining time for his borrowed weapon. 48 minutes remained until the weapon returned to the NPC. There was enough time to exploit the weapon and get as many spellbooks from the Gnoll shamans. The Catapus approached the edge of the tower while he arranged the new skill icons into the quick slots. Xiao Mao pressed the button and triggered one of the new skills. 1 man 1000 arrows. A red area appeared. Xiao Mao looked around, and the red zone with semi-transparent walls followed his vision everywhere. This was the preview of the targeted area. Xiao Mao only needed to confirm the skill and fire an arrow or a bolt in that direction, and the skill would automatically activate. Xiao Mao adjusted his sight. He glared at the crowd of Gnoll soldiers and Gnoll shamans, who had been looking up and staring back at the cat. The pupils of the Catapus shone in the dark cave, and his ominous smile looked more evil than any monster in the dungeon. His red zone vision fixated on the center of the bridge, covering 80% of the Gnoll army. Click. The target was designated. Now, Xiao Mao needed a bit of skill to fire a bolt or an arrow into that area to trigger the skill within 5 seconds. Failure to do so would result in failure, and the skill would not activate. In a relaxed manner, Xiao Mao raised his crossbow and aimed at the center of the bridge. He pulled the trigger, letting the bolt loose. Ding! 1,000 bolts in Xiao Mao's inventory vanished. This was the cost of using the skill regardless if it would succeed or not. But as soon as the bolt whizzed through the sky, it shone and multiplied into 1,000 bolts. They turned into a dark curtain in the sky and rained down upon the gnolls. A bolt exploded and caused an incendiary explosion upon impact. But 1,000 bolts created chain explosions. Xiao Mao ignored the flame. He kept the crossbow in his inventory and started eating fish and drinking HP potions. While he was at it, he sat back and watched the carnage and listened to the classic symphony of explosives. Fortunately, the satiety bar didn't decrease 1,000 times and kill Xiao Mao on the spot. The curse only counted the skill as one attack and only decreased his satiety bar by 2%. Realizing that he was safe, Xiao Mao let out a sigh of relief. Michael Bay would be proud, Munya. Crack. Crack. Unfortunately, in this game, the series of explosions were equivalent to a siege engine's attack. The bridge cracked and its HP bar rapidly decreased because of the high attack power output of the legendary crossbow. Boom! The center of the bridge collapsed, leaving only the 2 towers on each side of the bridge. Gnoll soldiers and shamans fell to the abyss while many died from the explosions. Xiao Mao salivated and rushed back to the NPC. He opened his inventory menu and prepared for the flood of items and spellbooks. Ding! Fatal error. Please contact a game moderator. Hey! Despite the rising in his EXP and level, no item entered his inventory after thousands of monsters had died. The error warning message also stunned Xiao Mao. Where is my spellbook? There was no EXP reward or any indication that Xiao Mao had killed the monsters. Instead, error messages spammed his notification panel. Why, Munya? Xiao Mao was on the verge of crying. The EXP gains from the 1000 level 40 ISH gnolls could instantly increase Xiao Mao's level to 40. Yet, Xiao Mao got nothing. As the Catapus stared at his system screen in shock, a game moderator sent a global announcement to the world. A huge message appeared in the notification panel. The server will undergo emergency maintenance for 1 hour. Please log out within 2 minutes to avoid data loss. Xiao Mao's eyes were bloodshot. He browsed the cash shop menu and purchased a speakerphone, which cost 1 pact. The item could be used for sending a global message to everybody in-game. But Xiao Mao used it to send a global message. I want compensation, Munya. I just rented a packed weapon in a dungeon, Munya. Xiao Mao's gold message appeared in every player's notification panel. Even his name was revealed. However, no one sent him a reply. Instead, the game moderator continued with his global message. Please avoid fighting monsters in the meantime. Killing a monster or completing a quest will not yield any reward. Mother humpers. Xiao Mao cursed the game's administrators, developers, and moderators in his mind. But before he could do anything, the server disconnected him from the game. Xiao Mao's consciousness returned to his real body in the game capsule. Meanwhile, at the office of the moderators, the staff sweated profusely as they listened to their manager's new order regarding Xiao Mao's character. "Are you sure, sir?" The manager was an elderly man with white hair in a black suit. He stared at his men and groaned. "Remember this. There will be several special accounts in the future. Their game accounts will come with special perks, and we can't do anything about them. Do not offend these players no matter what they did. But his character is too. No matter how broken the character is, leave him alone. If we touch their game characters, we will lose our job. From now on, we will take a roundabout method to nerf those characters without offending the board directors and the executives." "But why? Why are the executives playing the game? You don't need to know. If you treasure your career, do what I said. The developers are sorting the database. We will implement a new tool for game admins and mods so that you can tell which account is a super account. For now, don't touch that player." After giving his clinging cats more cat food and recharging his mental strength by petting Nianko's fluffy belly, Xiao Mao re-entered the game. As soon as he entered the game, he was greeted by a new interface and a patch notes screen. Patch notes. Version 1.0.25. Game balancing. Rebalanced drop tables. Boss monsters and elite monsters no longer drop more than 3 spell books or skill books at once. Maximum drop rate is now capped at 100%. Bridges and structures in dungeons automatically respawn every day if the dungeon core is still intact. During events, the respawn is automatically disabled. Tweaked the AI of dungeon monsters. Dungeon monsters can now climb walls, ropes, trees, and elevated environments better. Tweaked the abilities of boss monsters in dungeons. Players cannot attack monsters from the safe zones. Increased attack range of shamans, mages, and spellcasters. Compensation. Players who lost EXP and items during the maintenance will be compensated manually by game moderators. Reading the patch notes increased Xiao Mao's blood pressure. Xiao Mao felt like the patch was designed to weaken him. Now, he had the urge to storm the company and kill the game developers. Xiao Mao reappeared in the safe zone on top of the bridge's tower. However, the bridge was already respawned along with all gnolls below, including the gnoll general. At first, Xiao Mao was delighted that the boss reappeared, but he recalled that the game had just nerfed him. He sulked. He checked his item next. Unfortunately, the legendary crossbow already returned to the NPC. "Mother humpers, Munya!" Xiao Mao hissed. His fur and his tail stood up while his sclera turned black. His screaming voice echoed in the dungeon, yet no gnoll looked up or bothered with him. 30 minutes later, Xiao Mao finally regained his composure. Venting his anger, Xiao Mao fired a bolt at the gnoll crowd below. Unfortunately, his bolt vanished when it was out of the safe zone's range. The game indeed nerfed him. This game sucks. No, the dev sucks. Xiao Mao steeled his heart and opened his game inventory, checking his in-game assets. As he had expected, the dead gnoll shamans didn't give him any spellbook or item. While Xiao Mao inwardly cursed the game developers, he noticed a new item in his game inventory. An envelope flashed, attracting his eyes. Xiao Mao pressed on the item to see what it was. "Dear player Xiao Mao, we would like to express our deepest apology to you for the inconvenience. We are aware of the issues of the lost items and opportunities, and we have come up with a solution to compensate you. This envelope comes with 1000 pact, a selectable spell book ticket, and a spirit stone. You can use the selectable spell book ticket to exchange for any super rare spellbook in the game, while a spirit stone can be directly consumed to increase your EXP and levels. We understand that you have been playing the game honestly without using a third-party program, and we're encouraging you to continue doing so. However, Some perks that come with the custom game capsule might damage our game system and economy. Although we will not change your game character's skills and abilities, we have adjusted the game balance to make it enjoyable for everyone. If you have any inquiries, please contact the help menu or game moderators. Sincerely, Wang Meng, Assistant Administrative Manager. Xiao Mao was stunned for a moment as he reread the letter thrice. His killing intent subsided, replaced with a dark ominous crescent smile. Any super rare spellbook in the game, Munya? Any? Any. It was at this moment Xiao Mao knew the administrators and developers screwed up. It would have been better had they given Xiao Mao 1,000 super rare spellbooks from the drop tables. By giving him a choice, they armed this regressor with a nuclear warhead to fight against an army of medieval footmen. Chapter 49 Cat Dad's Choice. In Xiao Mao's past life, a player's community once categorized super rare spells and skills in tiers S, A, B, C, and D. All spells and skills in the D category came from level 50 bosses and under. Although every boss carried 100 types of skills or spells, they were all weak when compared to other super rare spells and skills, which dropped from stronger bosses. C tier consisted of a few skills and spells from level 50 bosses. As for the rest, these books could be found from level 100 bosses. These skills and spells were useful in most situations, but their effects and power were weak. B-grade skills and spells were the walls between serious gamers and casual crypto farming players. Only rare NFT characters had a chance to get it from field bosses, elite monsters, and dungeon bosses as they dropped from level 200 and beyond, which was impossible for cheap NFT characters to defeat. A and S tier was something in Legends. None of them was sold in the market, but the detail of these skills and spells were accessible in the public marketplace, where players could place a commission to purchase the skill books and the spell books. But then, what would happen if a low-level character could access the endgame spells or skills? That character would have been brokenly overpowered. Fortunately, the game added some restrictions to the spell books and skill books. Only players who had met the requirements could learn the abilities. Millions of different super rare skills and spells had already been revised and tested, and the developers made sure that no skill or spell would be imbalanced. That was what the developers had thought. 200 years, Munya. Xiao Mao couldn't help but laugh at the developer's attempt to curb his character's growth. He brought out the ticket and used it. The ticket flashed and transformed into a system panel, displaying the list of selectable spells. Xiao Mao could press on the spellbook icon and see all the details in another screen panel. The list was so huge to the point that the scroll bar was as thin as a needle. Xiao Mao looked at the scroll bar and slightly shook his head. Ding! Please choose a spell within 10 minutes. If you don't choose a spell within the time limit, the game will randomize it for you. Xiao Mao burst into laughter when he noticed the timer. Nice try! I'm not falling for that trick. Again, this was the developer's attempt to hide useful spells among the million spellbooks. The timer often pressured regular players into making a hasty decision and failed to find the right spellbook. Xiao Mao took his time. He walked back to the NPC vendor and operated the marketplace menu. Then, he searched for a few names. What were those spells again? Oh, right. The totems. Domestication totem? What was their exact name? As Xiao Mao wasn't sure, he searched the spellbook by using the keyword totem domestication. A spellbook icon appeared in the marketplace menu. It was the book that Xiao Mao was looking for. Many bidders had already reserved the rights to buy the spellbook, and the highest bidder offered 50,000 packs for it. The record sales of this item were 0. No one had put the spellbook in the marketplace yet, but 15 bidders offered to purchase the book with 50,000 packs. From Xiao Mao's perspective, most players had been ignoring this spell as the details seemed lackluster. As for him, he had seen it in action, and he needed one to complete his character. Xiao Mao read the description. Blessing Totem, Monster Domestication. This spell is a simplified version of a grand curse of Chaos Demon God. Although it lacks the essential core of a curse, the blessing totem is still useful for slave masters, tamers, summoners, beast masters, and every class that relies on slaves, pets, and monsters. To use this spell, you must set up a blessing totem first. Spell type: Continuous, Boon. Rarity: Super Rare. Requirement: 1000 Light Spiritual Root. Class restriction: Summoner, Tamer, Slave Master, Shepherd, Farmer, or Beast Master only. Cost: 100 max MP per resident. Refund max MP if the totem is destroyed. Cooldown: 24 hours. Effects: Upon placing this blessing totem in your resident, decrease the residential cost of your slaves, pets, and monsters by 10% as long as the blessing totem is active. Max 1 totem. Decrease their temperament over time. Increase their loyalty over time. The totem doesn't work on NFT retainers. Instinct: the spell is a must if you are employing monsters and slaves. You can only discover its true potential when you increase the spell mastery to a higher level. Instinct: after you maximize the mastery, a curse spell will be derived from this spell. Max it, and you will learn another curse totem spell. Max that as well, and you will learn another trap totem spell. Do it a couple more times, and you will get an ultra-rare grand curse spell. This spell had been once considered at the D tier because of its limited usage and restrictions. However, it was later promoted to the S tier for several reasons. At a glance, this spell seemed lackluster as it couldn't be used in combat. Other than decreasing the residential cost of slaves, it didn't do anything. Moreover, it consumed the caster's max MP per totem, turning it into a hindrance rather than being useful. However, when its mastery was maxed, the cost reduction would change to 50% and become extremely useful for players with an army of workers and slaves. For example, if a slave cost 1 contribution point, Xiao Mao could only employ or capture 1 slave with 1 point available. But with the max mastery level, Xiao Mao could control 2 slaves. The improvement would be huge in the later game when the contribution points surpassed 100 after the Landlord patch. By then, a player could possess a private army, and the scale of guild wars would never be the same. Furthermore, Xiao Mao only needed to max the spell mastery level to acquire an additional super rare spell. After that, he could repeat the process of maxing the mastery percentage and learn more free spells until no spell could be obtained. And most importantly, the last spell that Xiao Mao could obtain for free was an ultra-rare spell. In short, this Blessing Totem spellbook was a stepping stone to acquiring a Grand Curse spell, which was equivalent to an ultra-rare ultimate skill, and this Grand Curse would be one of the deadliest crowd control spells that every guild would kill to get their hands on the spellbook. The value of the Grand Spellbook? When the game was at its peak, one of the top guilds offered $500 million in cash for any player that could give them this Blessing Totem spellbook or any book that could grow into that Grand Curse spell. Xiao Mao looked at the requirement. He gained 25 allocable points per level, so 1000 points in Light Spiritual Root was easy to achieve. After getting the exact name of the spellbook, Xiao Mao searched for the item in the selectable spellbook menu. Fortunately, the spellbooks had been pre-sorted by alphabets. It was not difficult to locate the item among the million books with the same icon. Hell, yes, Munya. The spellbook magically entered Xiao Mao's inventory, and the menu disappeared. Looking at the spellbook, the previous anger disappeared like smoke. For the sake of the spell's safety, Xiao Mao put it in his premium warehouse storage right away. He also sorted the item slots and placed the book at the top so that he wouldn't sacrifice it as Mastery EXP by an accident. Now that the spellbook matter was resolved, Xiao Mao looked at the Spirit Stone, which the game mods had given him as compensation. Bunch of idiots! Do you think I will simply eat the Spirit Stone to increase my EXP? Don't you realize that it is a fucking scenario quest starter? Xiao Mao laughed at the game admins and moderators' attempts. Chapter 50 Cat Dad is a Cativator. Seaside Town. A group of 10 players gathered in front of a marketplace NPC at the town's plaza. 2 men in metal plate armor had been carrying a large sack of items. 3 women of the squad wore nothing but skimpy leather suits and canes. As for the rest of them, they had put on the newly purchased leather set and a knoll helmet. The group had one thing in common. They had a cloak with a claymore sword insignia, which represented their guild. Hovering over their heads were their HP and identities. However, everybody's name had the same prefix in front of their names. Claymore United was their guild. It sounded like a soccer team, but they were legit crypto farmers. This team was one of their farming team, which was made to complete random quests and increase their contribution levels. However, today, they came here to purchase the new set of leather gears, which suddenly flooded the market for a short moment. The captain of the team was a female mage in a striped leotard. Her game's character was a dark elf fire mage, which specialized in offensive magic. Although her race was an uncommon one, her class was mediocre at best. Her in-game name Cherry Popper attracted the gaze of many virgin male gamers. Combined with the cool beauty of a dark elf and her gravure model-like curvy body, she easily became the target of any man's fantasy. Well? How are the stats? Cherry Popper looked at the ugly knoll helmet of her rogue teammate. The rogue, Dog Eater, inspected his status screen and laughed. Sis, this is a lot better than our regular level 40 armor. It has a similar def as our regular gears, but it gives the set bonuses. It's a shame that we have to use a club to complete the set, though. So, does it worth 6 packs a set? Oh, come on, sis. How much are 6 packs? Like 30 cents? It's dirt cheap. That's not my point. Hey. Look. Instead of buying the gears and thinking it's cheap, how about you think where these gears came from? Cherry Popper pointed at the new gears and scolded her teammates. What? Listen closely, you little twerp. If these items are sold in mass, that means someone has found a new hunting spot and has been monopolizing it. We should use these items as a clue to find its source and capture that dungeon before other guilds take over. Oh. Her teammates were impressed by Cherry's insight. They nodded in agreement. So, tell me. Does the item description tell you anything about the dungeon, location, or the monsters? Give me a second, sis. Let's go somewhere quiet. The team hushed and left the marketplace. Cherry Popper and Dog Eater weren't the only ones with the idea. In several towns and cities, players from various organizations purchased the knoll set to track its source so that they could also farm them to make money. In addition to the chaos, some NPCs from adventurer guilds and merchant guilds began posting portraits of Xiao Mao. Fortunately, they didn't use a warrant notice, but the game simply posted a notification. Dear Xiao Mao, the king has summoned you to Siren City Palace. Please seek the audience with the king or report to the nearest adventurer guild in 3 days. Failure to comply will result in a warrant. Xiao Mao took his time, eating every fish in his inventory. Although all fish gave him stats, he didn't have enough fish to boost every attribute to 200. As a result, he camped the marketplace, bidding on every fish that players dropped in the game market. It worked, but it wasn't efficient. Xiao Mao collected 200 blue rarity fish from the market, but it took an hour of waiting. He wasted too much time. Feeling that camping for fish wasn't worth his time, Xiao Mao ate all fish and purchased cat food to prepare for the hardcore grinding. Xiao Mao spent 1,000 packs and rented the legendary crossbow from the NPC again. As he couldn't attack monsters from the safe zone, Xiao Mao changed his location. He climbed the tower down while he activated the chameleon skill. The catopus body changed color to a rusty brown, blending with the suspension bridge tower's color. His name and HP bar vanished from plain sight. As Xiao Mao slowly climbed a cable to descend from the tower, many gnolls looked up and twitched their noses. Fortunately, they failed to locate Xiao Mao. They simply looked around and scratched their head, confused by the body odor of a cat. Xiao Mao sweated profusely while he clung to the tower's cable for his dear life. It seemed that the gnolls became more sensitive to his movements and scent. Damn devs! You buffed the gnolls, didn't you? Getting stared by upgraded gnolls was uncomfortable. But after a while, Xiao Mao got used to the solid snake experience, and he regained his composure. Xiao Mao opened his game menu to check if he was out of the safe zone. Currently, he was 50 meters above the bridge, but he was still in the safety zone. He continued to descend while trying his best not to make any noise. He got down to 30 meters. Ding! Finally, he was out of the safe zone. Now, he was free to attack the gnolls. Xiao Mao was delighted. He pulled out the legend crossbow. But as Xiao Mao aimed at the gnoll general, he frowned. The boss monster was looking at him. Xiao Mao froze on the spot. He stopped all movements, pretending to be invisible. The gnoll general stared at Xiao Mao for a whole 10 minutes. But in the end, he snorted and looked away as if he had lost interest. Xiao Mao narrowed his eyes. He put the crossbow back in his inventory and contemplated his tactical choice. Should I attack the boss monster first? Is that really a good idea? Xiao Mao glanced at the army on the bridge. Then, he turned toward the large gate. No. It's not the time to snipe the boss monster. I'll grind some levels first. Instead of attacking the gnoll general, Xiao Mao came up with a new idea. Since the boss side's tower was considered a safe zone, the other tower might be a playable zone. Safe zones were unique. Only one existed in each dungeon. By this logic, the other tower should be in a free sniping position outside the safe zone. Thinking this far, Xiao Mao backtracked toward the suspension bridge tower on the other side. He climbed back to the safety zone, went back to the NPC, opened the marketplace menu, and purchased a long sword. Xiao Mao brought the long sword out. Then, he began practicing the newest skill. Flying sword. Upon activating the skill, Xiao Mao could see a mini hologram in front of him and a small touch-screen controller. Curious, Xiao Mao pressed it. The sword moved freely as if it was alive. It followed the controller's instructions. Xiao Mao laughed. He felt like he was controlling a remote drone. All right. I should practice some more during my free time. But now, I should ride it to the other side. The cat controlled the sword to park nearby. He hopped on it and held the hologram controller. Upon moving a pseudo joystick, the sword slowly climbed altitude and cruised to the other side of the bridge. For the first time, Xiao Mao enjoyed his first flight skill. I'm a sword cultivator, Munya. A minute later, Xiao Mao reached the first tower on the stairs side. Now, he could easily go back to the second floor. However, that was never Xiao Mao's intention. He disabled the flying sword skill to save MP. By standing on the tower and looking down at the crowd of gnolls below, Xiao Mao felt a lot better. He was no longer in the safe zone, and he was in the position to snipe the crowd below. The catapus brought out the rainbow-colored crossbow and aimed randomly at the patrolling unit. He pulled the trigger and tested the water. The bolt missed all targets. It hit the bridge and exploded. Boom! Various numbers appeared along with the mushroom of fire. Many gnoll soldiers screamed while gnoll shamans raised their staffs and healed their allies. Noticing that he could farm some monsters from here, Xiao Mao stopped hesitating. He activated an AoE skill right away. His vision locked the center of the bridge as the target. He raised his crossbow and aimed 45 degrees forward before he pulled the trigger. 1 man 1,000 arrows. Again, the rain of arrows hailed upon the crowd of 1,000 gnolls. But this time, many armored gnolls looked up and raised their shields while gnoll shamans stomped their feet and created a thin layer of barriers. Boom! 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 The chain explosion of 1,000 bolts instantly obliterated 500 gnoll soldiers and 5 shamans at once. Ding! Their death was satisfying. Over 1,000 messages flooded his notification panel, and his level jumped from 22 to 32. At the same time, common and uncommon grade heavy armor pieces were ejected from Xiao Mao's full inventory. 3 types of spellbooks dropped from the 5 dead shamans, and a total of 15 super rare spellbooks sat in his inventory slots. Despite seeing the satisfying deaths of Knoll soldiers and a few shamans, Xiao Mao had no time to check the new book's detail. He noticed something odd about the bridge, the reactions of the Knolls, and their behavior. The bridge's HP was higher than before. The structure's HP only decreased by 10% after a barrage. Also, more than half of the targeted Knolls survived the volley. Out of 5,000 Knolls on the bridge, 1,000 were within the previous firing range, and only 500 died. Awoo! Awoo! The remaining 4,500 Knolls on the bridge and the 1,000 Knolls around the general howled. They slammed their weapons against their shields and glared at Xiao Mao before charging toward the tower. Several of them held their sword in their mouths and hung their shields on their back. Their long nails dug into the tower, clawing and climbing the tower. The rest of them grabbed the suspension bridge's cables and began climbing. One of the shamans pointed their staff in his direction and a fireball flew toward him. Oh!